Hey, everybody. Welcome to Meddkit's Provider Spotlight, where we are interviewing the most amazing private practices from all over the United States. Every week, we get a new perspective, a new learning opportunity, and we really get to dive in with people that are super specialists. So today, we have an amazing guest, Dr. Dani Steffen, owner of Pure Movement Integrated Health Center. Dani, so awesome to have you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, I'm excited to kind of dive in, but something that I kind of always like to start off with because I always think it's really interesting how people kind of got into their field. I love to hear your origin story. How did this all come to be?
So there's two parts. One, we always get this question too when we start chiropractic school, and most of us do have some form of personal experience. Like I was a high school athlete, college athlete, played all the things. Unlike most kids, my first sport was hockey, and my hockey coach was a chiropractor, and I was one of the only girls playing. So I beat up on a lot of people and needed help. So I started receiving chiropractic care since I was like 6 or 7 years old and maintained. I loved it. My family, my dad's a veterinarian, my mom was an esthetician, so they were very like health minded. I even got supplements at a young age, and like I attribute to my current health because of those things. But the second part, so back to my mom, she actually was diagnosed with a lot of autoimmune conditions
Mm.
and some cardiovascular issues. So she had strokes, lupus,
Wow.
Addison's disease, rheumatoid arthritis, osteoarthritis, thrush, you name it, and ended up actually passing away at the age of 48 because of complications from it. Looking back, two of the hardest parts with that, where, when you're younger, you don't really see it until you kind of look at hindsight. And she was addicted to narcotics.
Yeah,
And it was really kind of eye opening to see that those behaviors were not normal, even though I thought they were normal,
sure.
and that some of that contributed to her early passing. On top of that, it took many, many, many years, like almost a decade, for her appropriate diagnosis. And that led to a lot of chronic pain. And it,
Yeah.
again, what I thought was normal was not. As I kind of had this happen, because she passed away like 2 weeks before my finals in undergrad, I just kind of did a whole pivot. Like I was pre-dental, like, or I even thought like pre-PA. I was a whole bunch of things. I just knew I was even like interested in just getting my PhD in biomechanics and like making running shoes. Like my brain was all over the place because when you're 21, you don't know ish. Some are lucky, but so I just pivoted and I shadowed all kinds of doctors and I realized like I've always wanted to be a chiropractor. I just never knew like I could or like that was a thing now. So I dived in and now I've had all these extra trainings for like autoimmune diseases and chronic disease. And I think it's really, really cool. And sports, of course, because I have two young, very athletic children.
That's awesome. It's hard to see a family member go through what your mom has, and I think autoimmune can be really, really sneaky. And so it's unfortunate what happened to your mom, but I love that you have taken the love that you have for your mom and integrated it and finding solutions for people now, which is a really great tribute to her. So
Thank you.
that's
It is.
amazing. And in terms of the people that you are able to help and do help on a day-to-day basis, what are, really, the most common things that you are finding people are struggling with? I mean, aside from autoimmune, are there other things that you feel like common and maybe to even talk about the uncommon things too, feel free, that you see?
So I am the old medical doctor I used to work with actually used to call me the zebra hunter, which there's a term in healthcare called like don't look for a zebra if you don't hear like hoofs and stuff, like whether it's x-rays or whatever. For some reason, I just ask the weird questions that lead to these like actual kind of weird diagnosis. Like there's even one like auto brewery syndrome, which is the whole thing. It's weird, but or like Kathy's Perthes, which is an insidious child hip issue. Like I've seen more than some pediatricians have just because I ask the weird questions. But that just means I get to spend time with them. So that's the cool part is I think my fun thing and the reason why I can see different things is because I spend time and I don't just blanket things into like just generic neck pain.
Right.
But I mean, we do see a lot of things that are just that kind of some generic neck pain, back pain, low back pain, hip pain. I would say majority of the time it's either things like bad mechanics
Mm.
and our current, like, kind of our lifestyle. Some of us are more sedentary than we've been, or we've been misinformed with diet, nutrition, and kind of what activities are best for us. I
Yeah.
do love the way healthcare is changing, where we're like, hey, do the opposite of what we've been told. Like, walk 10,000 steps a day, eat your eggs, like, get your sunlight in moderation. Like, I think this is really cool. And I think that's where we're going to see really awesome change in healthcare,
Yeah.
because the last 40 years, we were following one idea, it isn't really working. So now we're like, well, at least we tried it. Let's move to the next. So
Yeah.
that's cool. And I do see a lot of those things. And I love that people are ahead of it. Like, we try to advocate in our office. I want to see you. I don't want to have to see you, if
Yes.
that makes sense. So it's like, I want you to come in because, like, you're feeling pretty good, a little kink, we're ahead of the game, versus I've had this pain for 6 weeks and I go to Mexico tomorrow. That's really hard to deal with, but we do our best. And a lot of them, then we have that conversation. We change the mindset on what healthcare looks like. And we get into more of a, not necessarily just preventative, because that is the goal, but just
Yeah.
a awareness of your body to get ahead of pain getting so bad that now that's just your normal.
I love
So
that.
that's,
Yeah, I think a lot of people, everyone really needs kind of like a re-education
mhm,
on what is what actually. And I know we'll get into this later, but I think it's really important to, we've been fed, these are the things that all the shoulds, right? That maybe are not the real shoulds. And we get confused about that. So I love how your approach is from an education standpoint.
mhm,
And also, like, we want to see you graduate. We want to see you healthy. We're here for you. If that, if you're not, but I love that as well. But in terms of kind of diving in a little bit deeper into your approach, you said you spend a ton of time with people. You are the zebra seeker, right? What else about your approach you feel like is so different than what you might see out there otherwise?
honestly, just that I'm human. I am very professional casual, I call it. Like, today I'm wearing a goofy shirt. Underneath I have my official work shirt. It's fine. I don't run around barefoot or anything, but I just want to be like that, like, aunt at a party that knows something about health and you could talk to them about it.
Yeah.
Enough to be taken serious, but also to be that person that you can be frustrated with, or like need things with. I've had people talk about, their divorces, their relationships. I mean, everything. And that to me matters, because these little nuances of your life are about your life and your lifestyle, your healthcare. So I think because I am approachable and kind of human, I get those things. And that's why maybe I get to find the weird situations, because those little tips and tricks or little parts of the day that they don't feel is important. And honestly, you know where that came from? It was like an episode of what is it? Mystery Diagnosis or something, because I'm weird and I like those shows. And on one episode, a doctor told this lady to keep a journal. And there was just one little thing every day. And that's how they found out her issue. And it was something that was so minute. Didn't even like really matter. But he's like, oh yeah, in this literature it said this and it solved her problem, her decade problem.
Wow. Yeah.
So that, I don't know. Maybe I think it's that, and I just making people feel comfortable. Because if I'm doing acupuncture and the first thing I do is touch your butt, I think we need to have a good relationship.
Yeah, buy me dinner first. No.
A little bit.
No, yeah. I mean, I get that. I think, no one else really talked about this, which is really cool on how you brought this up. But looking at the little details, the unassuming details,
Mhm.
that can kind of be an underlying issue. And being relatable and approachable allows people to tell you those things, but also healing comes in many forms. And so, yeah, people come, maybe because they have a physical pain, but they might also have emotional pain. And, it's great that you've been able to be such a great resource for those things too.
Mhm.
I love
And
it.
make people feel comfortable to refer, have their children be seen, their grandparents be seen, their neighbor be seen. And I think the next biggest part is I know what I don't know. I'm not afraid to say, like, this is something I haven't seen before, or this is
Yeah.
something I can't treat. We need to navigate elsewhere.
Yep.
And some true chiropractic models, they want XYZ number of visits. And my rule of thumb is by visit 3. So we've done the new patient exam, we've actually dived deep, we've done a treatment, like a baby step treatment. I want to see how you tolerate it. We did another one in response to that first treatment. And then by the third one, we should be seeing some progress somehow,
Yep.
whether your activities of daily life are improved, your sleep's improved, your pain's gone, range of motion, something. If not, I'm not going to waste time. I'm not the person that's going to fix it, or we
Yep.
miss something. So then we move on. And that, I think sometimes people are a little taken off by, because they're used to like, oh, I'll go XYZ number of times or do these things, or let's throw the kitchen sink at it. And that's just not my model, because I think people value time and money and their
Yep.
health more than anything. So we
Awesome.
factor that in.
I love that. I think that's amazing. And I think that builds a lot of trust and kind of, what we've talked about, all throughout this is just that trust building, getting to know that person. And I think that's really important to people. So I really love that. The thing that I would love to hear from you, and we kind of like we're on the edge of it a little bit
Yeah.
earlier, is there are a lot of misconceptions in healthcare. There's a
Mhm.
lot of misconceptions also in all different specialties of healthcare. Yeah, totally. And so, you know, feel free, the internet can also be a really powerful tool. It can
Yeah.
be really, really great, but it can also throw you down a rabbit hole. Um,
Mhm.
and that's just not even close to where you were. You're like, oh, I have neck pain to like, I have cancer now. So what would you say, do you feel like you're commonly repeating or people are constantly asking and you're like, if people knew one thing that you
Yeah.
do or don't do, like what kind of would those misconceptions be?
There's a few in chiropractic. One is once you start going, you always have to go.
Mm,
And that's
mhm.
not the case. That's kind of this, again, the same model that I tell people, like, I want you to want to see me, not have to see me.
Yeah,
And I think part of that is our portal of entry. Like, I can have patients get in the same day or day after, which is huge.
yeah,
So they're not waiting a week or two for these things. Like, yes, I cannot prescribe medications, but I have over time been able to develop relationship with primary care doctors where I can just give them a call and say, hey, let me send you my note. A
yeah,
patient so and so is having this. I think maybe this medication may be appropriate. Can you review your chart and contact them and see if they can come see you? And that
yeah,
expedites things. Because then you get to not, I don't have to see you 5 times because we've also done other things. So that's one. Another one is the neck manipulations with chiropractic. That is one of our, when we talk about informed consent, the vertebral artery dissections are a very serious complication to discuss. However, research now, Cassidy and a few others have done studies on cadavers, not humans, because that would be gross, about the force of neck manipulations causing this. I tell people it's usually one of two things that's happening. One, you have a pre-existing condition, whether you have a family history of congenital things like vasculitis, you have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is a connective tissue disorder. That's why I think there's a higher risk for women in their 20s and 30s. They're flexible.
yeah,
Therefore, to get them to end range before we adjust, it's like The Exorcist. And that's not okay. But something's also going on. And unfortunately, at that time, whether it was you were at the hairdresser, you were turning your head in traffic or getting adjusted, whatever, the straw that just broke the camel's back happened. These things build up over time.
right,
Granted, the second part is mechanical adjustments, if done incorrectly, can have the possibility to increase this
right.
or expedite the timing of which this may happen. So I also even taught at the chiropractic college here locally. I teach at some other colleges for anatomy and physiology. I have a master's in biomechanics. So I tell everybody the nose should never cross midline before you adjust. So like
Yeah,
here, my tip of my nose is still like in the same spot. Even if I flex and do all of it, it's not here.
right.
That's to me what sets some things up for failure is how those things are happening. So if a chiropractor is spending time with you, they usually aren't rushing through the adjustment, and those things can be modified appropriately. If you're going to a facility that might just go wham bam, thank you, ma'am, I would think that that might be at a higher risk just because of time to palpate and time to
Sure.
communicate, watch their body language, all of that. Those are the big two issues with
Yeah,
chiropractic healthcare. I'd say the biggest. The third might be like health insurance coverage, but I accept all but maybe one major insurance company.
Wow.
Um, and I've been in network with them for over 5, 6 years, enough to kind of know how to navigate it and just have full disclosure on expected costs for people.
That's awesome. I think
Yeah.
that's really hard to get a lot of times. So yeah, that's awesome. Kind of a really good way to round things out. I'd love for you, if you could, to give us some, maybe there's some common things that you might, give to a client after, a session, or you might say to people, here are a couple things to do. This would put you in a better trajectory today. This would be better for prevention, overall health. What do you think some of those things might be?
So there is a pharmacist online, and I'm going to ruin his last name because it's like D. Nicolangelo. He's a PhD cardiovascular guy. He's on Instagram. Honestly, he's one of my favorite that I read because I agree with pretty much everything he says. And I kind of relate that to my appointments for what you're discussing. And
Yeah.
it's things like take the time to take care of yourself. If you have a spouse, go outside for a 10-minute walk with them, reconnect, spend time in the sunlight, spend time barefoot in the grass, drink plenty of water, get your sleep. So make sure that if you are investing in things, instead of buying your Starbucks coffee, get a good mattress and pillow. I also say do things like move your body too, like meditate, read a book, like basic things. I know we're in such a rush in this world, and I can be one just to do the same thing. But if we don't slow down and take care of those things, it accumulates, and I would say, like, on top of that, like, even if it's like, yeah, I know you don't love a bath, but take an Epsom salt bath, drink a glass of wine, do something that brings you joy, calms you, nourishes your body, even if it's just for 20 minutes a day.
That's
That's the biggest thing, just slowing down. There's bigger details, but every single person I know could do that somehow. Making sure you spend time with your kids and your family, because you don't get that time back. And obviously, earlier I discussed why I'm biased with that, but you do. You just need to take that time.
I love that. You hear different things and, sometimes it's do more, do more, do more, right? But I love how you took the approach of like, slow down a little
Yeah.
bit. You need to like bring it down a couple of notches for yourself,
Hmm.
for 10, 20 minutes a day. It's not about getting it all done. It's
Hmm.
about slowing down your body and doing something that you might really enjoy, or getting outside and getting back to basics, slowing down and getting back to basics.
You do, because this, I think, in the last like decade, we have just had this expectation of things being done quickly. And that's not always the case. And I have two young boys that are 6 and 9 years old. And I go back, you get your like Facebook like reminders, and I'm like, oh my God. Like my son turned 9. That means he's 10. That means he's 18. That means he's leaving the house. Like it really, like I tripped on his birthday. I was like, oh my God. So like we make it a note. When my husband is even a head football coach, so when we come home, we tell each other, like, do you have 100? So that's our rule. So if I have 100%, that means I'm turned off from work. I'm turned off. I don't need to work out. I don't need a food prep. Like, we're good. I can be here focused. If not, if he's
Yeah.
like, hey, I got to do XYZ, I'm 120. He's 80. So we work, or however you want to do it. So that helps us make sure we don't take away from our kids and they don't see us like always working or doing things. We play with them all the time, that matters. So because I feel like that's how people, okay, this is actually really inappropriate, but I tell people the reason why they're mad is the S's: sleep, either too much or too little;
Yeah.
sugar;
Yeah.
sex;
Yep.
sunlight; salt; or sweat.
Huh.
Something in their life is missing, and that's why they're mad.
Hey, I mean,
But it's
I like
simple, and think about it. My Instagram dude, he talks about it too. He's like, if you're mad, go for a run. If you're stressed, meditate. Like, or like, if you think someone's like mad at you, or like if you think someone's mad at you, take a nap. Like,
Yep,
sleep, sweat. Like, it fits. So
it does. And I love your approach because it is, life is simple if you make it, right?
mhm.
And so there's so much things that clog our minds on a day-to-day basis, but I love how you just break it down and actually, yes, like this is so simple. And sometimes until it hits you in the face, you don't realize how simple it can be. And so sometimes people just need a reminder that, yeah, this is You can go outside and take that quick walk. You can get some sun. You can, get to the gym real quick and get a quick sweat in. So I love it. I think this is amazing. Dani, this has been so awesome. I so appreciate you being here. Before we leave off today, I'd love for you to tell everyone who's listening, where folks can find you, where they can ask some questions, get some additional resources. That would be terrific.
So we are located in Bonner Springs, Kansas, which is outside of Kansas City. The really popular big areas Legends. So if you're familiar with that, where they might be moving the Chiefs, that's where we're at. Yes, our office is Peer Movement Integrated Health Center. You can find us online at peermovementkc.com. Not only myself, but we have a wonderful physical therapist who's fellowship trained, a massage therapist, a soon to be lactation consultant, and we are just full with amazing things here to all hone in on just making sure you're living your healthiest, best, happiest life. Because right now, with everything going on in this world, like my dad lives in Florida during the hurricane, like
Oh
you
my
just have to kind of, like I said, slow down, focus on that. And, you can't fill from an empty cup. So here we have everyone that's willing to help at any capacity to make you feel your best at any age as well. I love seeing everyone.
That's awesome. I'm so happy that you came on today. This has been great, wealth of knowledge, and hope to have you on again soon.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much.